back to Murphy's Cut Flowers. Today I'm going to take you guys on a little farm tour and just show you what's going on. So right here I'm going to start. And today I have a helper. I have someone holding the camera, so hopefully this works out a little bit better. We're gonna start, this is my seed starting station. And previously I had this on my porch. But one of the hardest lessons that I learned last year was in our climate in zone 9A, the more you coddle the seedlings, the harder time they have taking off in the field. So I moved everything out here because it's warming up so fast this season that I knew it wouldn't matter how much I hardened off, or I would spend 2 or 3 weeks hardening off to the point that they would be ready for the field instead of just letting them be raised or grow in the environment that they're going to live in over here. So come on. Okay, right here I have, this was my second field. My first space was over here. This was my second space. And I have to cut the water off. But we have celosia, zinnias, amaranth, more zinnias right here. And then this one, I just popped some asters in and they're popping up. They're coming up nicely. And we have some bachelor's buttons over here that I overwintered. And then sweet peas. So my sweet peas I had, and this is another thing I'll explain to you guys, is I had black mat on my sweet peas. I had them mounded. So they weren't doing anything for weeks. And I took the mat off, and within 1 week of not having the mat on, these sweet peas have grown 4 or 5 inches. I already kind of knew that that was an issue, that the mat heats the soil too much. And that is one of the large reasons that I don't have a lot of mat anywhere. I have mat in this bed, but it's mainly just in the walkways. And I do intend on pulling that out after this season. I won't do it this year. But after this season, I do plan on pulling that out. But nothing that's going in the ground is going to have mat around it for that reason. It just, in the thick of the summer, and I think I've mentioned this in another video, but in the thick of the summer, we have feels like temps that are over 100, well over 100. And so obviously what happens is the soil heats up and it's just everything fails to thrive. Even the stuff that is like, oh, heat resistant, drought resistant, this is great for, well, it's not great for the desert. So, and then the second reason is I don't like dealing with this stuff. I don't like having to move it. I don't like having to rearrange it. I don't like that it's just you have to replace it every year. I don't like any of that. I know there are higher grades that you can use that last longer, but this one, for example, was a very high grade mat, and it's already threading. So it's been in the ground for 2 years and it's already threading, which tells me that you might tell me that it could last 10 years, but it's not going to last 10 years. So now I have little threads that are all over my garden that I'm picking out and putting in the trash. And we'll walk over here. Okay, so here is the area that had the mat in, and this square, this black square, is what I originally started with last year. So everything else is an addition. In this bed is a lot of what I overwintered. I have snapdragons, I have bells of Ireland, I have blue Purim, I have some stock in the back and some scabiosa, all of which are finally doing wonderfully. They've caught the memo that spring is here. And this bed is yet to be filled. Then we have bachelor's button, phlox, and this far bed over here is a mix of zinnias, larkspur that I direct sowed, and you can see like there's a massive clump right there. I've mentioned again that I have a cat and we've had really high winds, so I'm not exactly sure how like 14 of them ended up like this, but they did. They seem to be thriving, so I'm not going to move them. In the back I have bishop's flower and Queen Anne's lace, so I'm really looking forward to the bishop's flower. I have Queen Anne's lace already coming up now and I love it, but I'm really looking forward to the bishop flower. This space, these are my experimental asters right here. I started these inside and they hated it. They hated it. They hated being in trays, and I was starting them early hoping or trying to see if I could get a Mother's Day flush, and that's just not gonna happen. But I put them in the ground and I was like 70% chance that they just die. They're just dead. And they're not. They are looking really, really honestly awesome considering the state that they were in. And you can point it down and show them. They're looking awesome considering the state that they were in about a month ago. In this bed, I have Cosmos, and this bed here is yarrow, and it's contained because yarrow in my area is a perennial, and I am learning that it can be slightly invasive. So I kind of have it contained in this space, and I'm hoping that that works. But it is one that I'm really going to have to watch because this stuff just pops up all over the place. This bed started with just like 3 small clumps. It was probably 3 months ago. It was just 3 small clumps of yarrow, and I don't know if you can see it now, but it is like everywhere. It is popping up everywhere. And I moved it from that back bed over there, and interestingly enough, I have constantly been pulling yarrow out of that bed. So love it, really looking forward to it. I'm getting a lot of white blooms right now, and I put in the Pacific mix, so I'm really hoping that I start seeing more color soon. This space, what I have right here are sunflowers, and they will not stay here, but my ranunculus, you can see they're looking terrible. They don't love life at all. So what I did was put in these sunflowers and hope that it creates a living shade for the ranunculus, but I don't think they're going to pull up in time. I have shade cloth that is going to go over these guys in the morning, but we had a frost it's about 12 days ago now, and what had happened was we had frost. I knew it was coming one night, but the night before it was kind of an unexpected frost. So I covered them the second night, but it was really too late. They had already gotten nipped, and then we swung right back into 82-degree weather like the very next day. So, and they don't like that. They hate it. So they're not thrilled with me. And I had a lot of really short stems, so I snipped all those and I've fertilized. I used fish emulsion and worm castings. And I did put a little bit of bone meal in there this time. But I'm not holding my breath for those, and that's fine because my season is officially going to open the first week of May, and I have a lot of other things that are still on track to meet that mark. So it was my first year with ranunculus. Next year, if I do them again, I'm definitely going to do a low tunnel and see if that works out better. But honestly, I still won't be investing hundreds of dollars into the ranunculus next year. I'll probably cap it at like, you know, maybe 120, 150. This is what I'm willing to put in this investment. And if it doesn't work next year, then it'll be nixed altogether just because of our climate. You know, we had winter. We had a really good winter, but we've also kind of had a summer spring already, not to mention the drought. Sprinkled in this bed, I have some Campanella at the end of it, and then I have Sweet William and more larkspur that I direct sowed. No. This larkspur I started in trays, and this is gonna tie into my other point that I'm going to make when we get to this back bed. But I started these from seed, and they were planted before I direct sowed the other larkspur, and there's a massive difference in size. Massive. I'm going to wait until they actually bloom to see if there's a difference in quality, but the seed that I direct sowed is greener, taller, fuller, way more healthy than the seed that I started in trays and spent all that time on taking care of on my porch and then put out here. So we'll see what happens when they bloom, but I already have a feeling, and I am going to see which one actually blooms first. But so far, what was direct sowed is looking way better than what I spent all that time taking care of. This is my new space, and I just tilled this area about 2 weeks ago. And so I tilled it and I raked the weeds out, and then I tilled it again, and then I raked more weeds out, and then I tilled it a third time, and I am still raking weeds out. And I know some of you are gonna think I'm absolutely insane for not using weed barrier, but I'm telling you, it heats our soil up so much on top of just having to deal with it. So I did this last year in that smaller area that I showed you at the beginning, and it took me like 6 months. I spend 15 minutes a week yanking a few weeds or weeding it. 15 minutes a week, maybe 30. In the height of summer, I'll probably spend 2 hours a week weeding everything. I'm fine with that. I can live with that. The alternative is the mat cooking my plants, essentially. So we have 2 more successions of sunflowers here. These went in, some of these were started by Trey, some of these were direct sown. Again, I'm really watching what I start from seed in trays and what I can put in the ground, because one of the hardest lessons I learned last year was anything that starts out in the ground, in the environment that it is actually supposed to thrive in, does insanely better, grows quicker, stronger, faster, handles the elements, even tolerates the bugs better than what gets babied in trays. I don't have a greenhouse. It is something I might do. I've been playing with the numbers, just a seed starting greenhouse. But again, our climate and in the thick of summer, and I want my season to last July and August, and those are our 2 hardest months. So I can't put seedlings that I have coddled and babied in the ground out here and expect them to thrive. They will either die or they will spend 4 times longer in shock than, and then my entire season is delayed. My entire succession is messed up, because plants that should have been growing and putting off blooms in 2 to 3 weeks are like, what are we doing here? Why are you doing this to us? It's just that hot. And this season especially, the almanac is calling for dry and hot, and we're already hitting 80s. We've already had 87 days, and it's just the very end of March. We're not even in April yet. So this is another part of my experiment. I have Benary Giants and Oklahomas right here. And I also have zinnias on the other side of my house, and they're doing great. But part of it again is I am going to watch and see what blooms first, because I have seedlings in the ground that have been in the ground for 3 weeks versus things that I direct sow. Are they going to grow faster and stronger, like I suspect they will, than the stuff that gets babied? I saw, like, when I first started and watching a ton of YouTube videos and watching and seeing what everyone does, and there are so many people that have setups in their basement to seed start in their basement. 1, I don't have a basement. I have a mobile home. 2, it kind of gets in your head that you're going to start your plants inside somewhere and then bring them out and harden them off for a little bit, and then they're going to go in the ground. Well, then I realized the people that are doing this are people that have much shorter growing seasons. I have a very long growing season in 9A, and there are also people that don't have the climate to where they can put things out in April yet. I have a bunch of friends on TikTok, and or a bunch of people that I follow on TikTok, and they're still getting snow, so they don't have this option. Whereas if I chose to do it any differently, my plants are not going to thrive. So knowing your climate, knowing your bugs, and paying attention to the soil temperatures when you're in these hotter climates is crucial, pretty much. Here I have Status. I have 2 rows of Status, and I have a couple more successions, I think 2 more of Status going. And I do have a lot in trays right now, because we just, like I said, we just had our last frost 2 weeks ago. But that will fizzle out, and I will be testing, like, obviously. So here's my plan. I will start some in seed trays, and I will direct sow some, because I cannot guarantee that everything that I want to direct sow, and this next one is a good example, is going to thrive that way. Some things will prefer to be started in the trays. For example, this row right here is Gomphrena, and direct sowing is not recommended. But I did my research, I did a lot of research, and our soil temps are already above 70. So I'm giving it a shot. And I put half of the seed in this row, and I'm going to put half of the seed in seed trays tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. But that's the kind of thing that is going to make or break, and it affects, like I said, everything else. Your successions get messed up, and then you've got a massive gap in mid-July when you should have blooms everywhere, because you thought you were going to stick your little seedlings that have been chilling inside or on your porch in the ground, and they were just going to hop to in the next 2 weeks without, even if you harden off. Like I said, last year I hardened things off what should have been enough, like it should have been enough time, and they still just struggled to thrive in our climate. Then I have 2 rows of straw flower, and down here on the end I have ageratum. I think I have like probably close to 2,000 more seedlings in trays. So this week is going to be a very full week for me. I'm getting everything, and part of the reason I'm putting, I think out of those, probably half of them will go in the ground this week, and then I'm going to use those seed trays to start some of the next successions because I don't want to buy more. There are points in which, like, I could be like, oh my god, I need like 4 more sets of seed trays, but I really don't. Go ahead and get this in the ground, and then my next successions won't be quite as long, because a lot of what I have going now is going to kill, like, and I'm actually throwing in a lot of perennials, which I'll do a different video on. So it feels like a really big set right now, but it's going to balance out. I'll show you down here. I'll just kind of give you an overview of the field. This is my cherry tree, by the way. Everyone said, you can't grow cherries in South Georgia. Well, I'm trying. I'm a rebel, okay? And I'm just saying, it's got buds. It's got buds. And we got enough chill hours this season, this winter, for it to technically work. So I don't know if you guys can see down here, pretty much everything past this line on is going to get a good bit of afternoon shade. I have a pecan tree over here, and once, I hope it fills out, but once it fills out, this the afternoon will be shaded right here. So I am making very strategic choices. I do have several things that would prefer a break from our brutal heat. So like I said, I'm just making some very strategic choices on what I put down here. And a lot of what I'm putting in this area is technically a perennial. So I'm also keeping that in mind. I know a lot of you other guys can relate. It's like the flower math of like, okay, if I put it here, what am I gonna do with it this season? And then what's it gonna do through winter? Is that somewhere that it's gonna be, you know, all those things. So, we have a lot going on, and I meant to do this video about a week ago, but I was sick. Allergies. We have what we call prescribed burns down here, and between, like, the pollen doesn't usually bother us, but if you're not from South Georgia, there are plantations everywhere, and there's land everywhere, and it's wonderful. It really is. But every March, they're like, oh, let's burn it all. And it's a good thing that they do, because it prevents wildfires, and it's really good for the vegetation and the wildlife itself. But it's a struggle to survive at some point. Like, everything's gray, and we're all coughing and sneezing, and our eyes are burning, and we're hacking. So I really feel for the ones that are affected by the smoke and the pollen. So we're over that. And I will cut this short because we're running out of daylight. We'll see you guys again soon.